Resident Evil Genesis, a novelization by Keith R.A. DeCandido. Chapter 1. Aaron Ricella regarded the younger man sitting opposite him with a combination of awe and outrage. He took a sip of Chianti before speaking. "You know, Matthew, I did warn you when I recruited you that this was an endeavor that might claim your sanity. I must confess, however, that I did not expect the fall to happen so soon." He set the wineglass down on one of the few clear spots on his massive oak desk. The Tuscan vintage went down a bit too smoothly. Aaron preferred the harsher red wines from northern Italy, the type of wine you need to punch a hole through the wall to get down. In the guest chair, Matthew Addison sat staring down at the desk. An overburdened wire-frame inbox took up one corner. Aaron's flat-screen monitor and keyboard, both products of the Umbrella Corporation, another. The irony of his equipment being of Umbrella manufacture was not lost on Aaron, given that a goodly portion of the machine's computing power was given over to trying to expose that corporation's illegal activities. The rest of the desk's wooden surface was laden with random assortments of books, CDs, zip disks, floppy disks, Post-its, printouts, spiral-bound reports, envelopes, folders, and quite possibly the corpse of Jimmy Hoffa. Aaron had been meaning to clean the desk in his office since the Carter administration. Once you got past the desk, the office, located in the western corner of Aaron's large suburban home, was quite orderly. Bookshelves lined one wall, contents arranged neatly, a wet bar, from whence he had taken the Chianti, and several landscape paintings adorned the opposite wall, and behind him was the picture window looking out on his acres of property. A cleaning service came in twice a week to vacuum, dust, and make sure everything was in order. But the cleaners were not allowed to touch Aaron's desk. Any attempt to disturb his chaotic jumble would, he was sure, destroy the consulting business that paid for the house and the cleaning service. The sloppiness worked for him. Matt finally looked up at Aaron and stared at him. "It's the only way this'll work." "It's insane, Matthew. We cannot involve a civilian in this." "Civilian? Listen to yourself, Aaron. We're all civilians. The whole point of this organization was that it was as outside the system as Umbrella is above it." Aaron grabbed his glass of wine. "Yes, but at least we all know the risks. And yes, we're all civilians now, but most of us at least have the experience necessary for this kind of work. Your sister can do this." Matt leaned back in his chair. Only then did Aaron notice that he was fiddling with a paperweight that Aaron had been trying to find for the last 2 months. "Look, if we try to send anyone else in undercover, it won't work." "That's ridiculous." "No, it isn't. If I go in, or Marcus, or Dora, or Zara, or Ripley, they'll make us. And you know why?" Sighing, Aaron said, "No, but I assume you'll tell me." "Because we'll all have cover stories." "Of course you will." Aaron finished his wine in one gulp. It was definitely too smooth. That's what the cover in undercover means. And that's why it won't work. Umbrella's got their fingers in everything, no matter how good a cover we come up with. They'll find some way to plow through it, and we'll not only be back where we started, we run the risk of exposing the whole operation. That's why we need Lisa. So you're saying that the only person who can possibly successfully infiltrate the Umbrella Corporation in order to obtain the information we need to bring them down is someone who has absolutely no experience in infiltration or information retrieval? Yes and no. Aaron rubbed the bridge of his nose with his thumb and forefinger in a futile attempt to stave off a headache. Matthew, Yes, and she has no experience in infiltration, except what she may have picked up from me by osmosis. Aaron said, "Talked about your work in the federal marshal's office around the dinner table, did you?" "Well, no, but... Matthew, this is ridiculous. It's too dangerous." To Aaron's surprise, Matt slammed his hand on the oak desk, sending several pieces of paper, 2 CDs, and a post-it with Aaron's daughter's cell phone number onto the floor. "This whole thing is dangerous, Aaron. If it wasn't dangerous, it wouldn't need to get done. But the longer we sit on our butts worrying about what risks we might want to take, Umbrella keeps getting closer and closer to doing something they can't cover up without getting a lot of people killed. Now either we do this, or I'm out." At that, Aaron laughed. "An action which will have repercussions from one end of your head to the other. Honestly, Matthew, do you truly think yourself so mighty a cog in our wheel that we will do something insanely stupid just to appease you?" He leaned forward. "I helped found this organization, and I've been one of its primary financiers. Believe me, no one wants to bring Umbrella down more than me. One of the reasons why Umbrella doesn't know about us is because we're well spread out, well organized, and because we haven't taken stupid risks." "Yeah, and Umbrella's still going strong without any sign of being actually brought down by this organization dedicated to doing so, because you're not taking any risks, stupid or otherwise." Aaron got up. "I need another drink. You want anything?" Ignoring the question as Aaron went over to the wet bar, Matt instead sat bolt upright in the guest chair. "Besides, if I quit, it just means I'll go off on my own. One nice big loose cannon of an ex-marshal will stumble around like an idiot trying to expose Umbrella, and probably get captured along the way. That wouldn't bode too well for your precious organization." Rolling his eyes, Aaron said, "Really, Matthew? If you were the sort to do something like that, I never would have recruited you in the first place." Matt, deflated, now slumping. "Yeah, I know. But it was the only card I had." He looked up at Aaron. "Can you pour me one of those?" Smiling, Aaron removed another glass from the cabinet, pouring the last of the 2 smooth Chianti into it. As he poured, Matt said, "Look, Lisa's got something none of the rest of us have." "Besides a lack of experience?" Aaron handed the glass to Matt. "Actually, yes. You assumed that she had no experience retrieving information, but in fact what she does for a living is work in computer and internet security. She's one of the top people in that field. Before she went freelance, she put in some good years at a lot of the top firms. KPMG, Bear Stearns, Citibank. She's got a killer resume. Not only that, but Umbrella headhunted her a few years back." Aaron blinked. "She turned them down?" Matt nodded as he sipped his wine. Aaron was stunned. If Umbrella set their sights on a potential employee, they rarely stopped until that person was an actual employee. "Why?" "She was living in New York at the time and didn't want to relocate to Raccoon. Couldn't, really. She and Nick were still married, and that was when Nick's mother was getting sick. No way they were going to leave town with all the care her mother-in-law needed." "Umbrella has an office in New York." "Yeah, but they wanted someone for the home office." Snorting at the euphemism, Aaron said, "You mean the hive?" Matt nodded. Most of Umbrella's private sector work was done at their various locations around the globe, technology and equipment relating to computers and healthcare. The hive was the underground complex under Raccoon City where the company conducted business related to its government contracts. Officially, the hive existed in order to preserve the classified nature of some of those contracts. Unofficially, that was an excuse to do work both for the government and the private sector that was not necessarily legal or ethical. "But she's divorced now, yes?" Aaron retook his seat. Matt nodded again. "And even if she wasn't, the mother-in-law in question is dead. Lisa went freelance a couple years back, right after she and Nick split. With the economy in the shape it's in, though, I don't think she'll have any trouble convincing the recruiters at Umbrella that she'd like something more secure, if they're still interested. And given the premium they place on security, I'm willing to bet real money they'll still be interested in taking her on. Especially when she's got much more varied experience now. Aaron snorted. You're living on a federal marshal's pension, and quite a meager iteration of same at that, Matthew. You don't have any real money to bet. He sighed. But what if they find out who she is? They'll know who she is. A top-notch computer geek who'll be working directly with the company's security people. You've met her. She can charm the socks off anyone. She'll be able to get us the info we need. What happens when they run the background check and find out that her brother is a retired federal marshal? Matt shrugged his deceptively small shoulders. We've lived on opposite sides of the country for most of our lives. We don't see each other that often. If I tried to get a job with Umbrella, they'd probably dig deep enough to find out what kinds of things I've been doing since I retired. But as the brother of a prospective employee, my, he grinned, veneer of respectability should hold up. Swiveling his chair slightly so he could glance out the picture window, Aaron took a thoughtful sip of his wine. It could work. His reservations notwithstanding, it was actually a better plan than anything else they had attempted. Well, no, it was a bolder plan. That didn't necessarily make it better. Simply one with greater rewards if they were successful. There's one more advantage, Matt said quietly. Aaron swiveled the chair back toward Matt. Oh? If she's caught, she can't be traced back to us. It was all Aaron could do to keep from laughing. What are you going to tell her, Matthew? That the secretary will disavow all knowledge of her mission? Matt did smile at that, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Matthew Addison had blue eyes that were at once soulful and intense, and right now those eyes were boring into Aaron Bracella. We have to get something, Aaron. The new legislation they got through Congress makes it even harder to prosecute them, and gives them tax breaks up the wazoo. If the rumors we're hearing are right, and they're developing biological weapons... He trailed off. He certainly didn't need to elaborate. They lived in a world where people blew up vehicles filled with children, sent deadly poisons to total strangers, and flew airplanes into skyscrapers. Any kind of bioterrorism weapon that could be produced by a company with Umbrella's resources would be eagerly embraced by any number of governments, and Aaron wasn't at all sanguine about the world's prospects if any of them got their hands on such weapons. All right, Aaron stood up. We'll give it a try, Matthew. But we can't support her if things go wrong. People who go to work for the Hive sign 5-year contracts and NDAs that are binding in ways that only the most expensive lawyers in the world can make them. She's making a massive commitment here, and she'll be on her own. Not if she succeeds, she won't be. Matt spoke with a confidence that Aaron didn't share. Prosecuting busted non-disclosure agreements will be the least of Umbrella's problems if this works. Your faith is touching. He took another sip of his wine. I know what she's getting herself into, and obviously you do. The question is, does she? Yes. Matt spoke without a moment's hesitation, which made Aaron all the more suspicious. Really? Yes, really. The intense blue eyes bored into Aaron a second time. Trust me, she has her reasons for wanting to do this. Very well, Aaron sighed. I'll put the wheels in motion on our end, and God help all of us. Chapter 2. In her mind's eye, Lisa Broward, née Lisa Addison, still saw the hollow look on Fadwa's face the day of Mahmoud's funeral. It had been 4 years, and that look simply refused to dislodge from her brain. I gotta ask, Miss Broward, why the change? Lisa banished the image of Fadwa's eyes dripping with unattended-to tears, and forced herself to focus on the round face of Casey Acker, the human resources drone who was conducting her latest in a series of interviews with the Umbrella Corporation. Acker was a jovial, overweight man in his 40s who was sweating more than he should in the air-conditioned office. His thick, plastic glasses kept slipping down his nose, and he constantly tried to get a glance between the buttons of the placket of Lisa's white shirt, as if he'd win some sort of prize if he actually spied the white lace of her bra. She found herself wishing she'd worn a pullover blouse, or at least buttoned her suit jacket. Why the new attitude, Miss Broward? 6 years ago we offered you a similar job and you turned it down. I gotta know what's changed in the last 6 years, you know? Acker was the fourth person to ask her that question, and only wasn't the fifth because he was just the fourth person to interview her. With the ease of long practice, she repeated the answer she'd given the other three. I had a steady job with Citibank at the time, and I wasn't prepared to leave New York. My husband and I were caring for his sick mother. And now? She died, and my husband and I have since divorced. Really? Acker said the word in such an eager voice that Lisa felt the sudden need to take a long, hot, cleansing shower. Of course, that image was probably one that would turn Acker on. Yes, since the divorce I've been working freelance, but steady work is getting harder to find, she sighed, brushing a lock of blonde hair behind her ear. With the economy the way it is, I'd like something steady, and I wouldn't mind starting over in a new city. Favoring Acker with a false smile, she added, even if it is half a mile underground. Acker grinned, showing yellowed teeth. Well, it don't get much steadier than Umbrella, Miss Broward. You'll be thrilled to know that your background check went through just fine. You passed with flying colors. She forced herself to smile. I didn't realize it was a test. The smile caused Acker to beam proudly, reminding Lisa of a cat she and Matt had as a kid. Mittens always had that expression when he brought a dead mouse to the bedroom door. Sort of. You have to understand that the kind of work we do and the kind of work you'll be doing is very sensitive. We gotta be real careful about who we hire, you know? Now, I know Mr. Delmonica explained all about the 5-year contract and the fact that you'd be living in the hive, but I'm afraid I gotta go over it all again. Lisa tuned out Acker's droning as he went through the litany. She knew all this even before she went on the first interview. She and Matt had discussed it thoroughly. Umbrella's most sensitive work was done in the hive, their name for the underground complex that served as Umbrella's primary corporate headquarters. From what Matt had told her, the corporate carelessness and the lack of accountability that led to Mahmoud's death was only the tip of Umbrella's iceberg of unethical, illegal, and immoral activity. Contract or no, she had no intention of working for this company for 5 years, because she had no intention of allowing it to remain in business that long. Unbidden, the image of Fadwa came back, walking her back to the car after Mahmoud's funeral service, visiting her when she got the settlement check, wondering how anyone could put a price on her husband's life. Mahmoud al-Rashan was one of Lisa's co-workers at Citibank. He had also been a close friend, always lending a sympathetic ear when she and Nick were having their problems. When Nick started neglecting her after his mother died, Mahmoud was there for her to talk to. When she decided to leave him, Mahmoud and Fadwa offered their couch until she could get her own place, and both helped navigate the real estate minefield that was apartment hunting in New York City. And Mahmoud had been great about recommending her for contract work after she went freelance. In turn, Lisa had been there to help comfort him when what should have been a simple surgical procedure on an ulcer in his stomach turned into something worse, and the drugs prescribed to alleviate the post-surgical complications served only to exacerbate the problems. Mahmoud's lawyer had urged him to sue, a decision Lisa had supported. However, the hospital was not the only target of the suit. The surgeon who had operated on Mahmoud was employed by a service called RPC, the Reserve Physician Corps, which provided supplemental medical staff for overburdened hospitals. The equipment used in the surgery, which was according to the expert hired by Mahmoud's lawyer, substandard, was supplied by Caduceus Medical Supplies, and the bad drugs they prescribed were supplied by Armbruster Pharmaceuticals. RPC, Caduceus, and Armbruster were all subsidiaries of the Umbrella Corporation. 3 things happened between Mahmoud filing the suit and the arrival of the first settlement check. First, the Al-Rashans found themselves the subject of a brutal IRS tax audit. They came through with a clean financial bill of health from the government. Both Mahmoud and Fadwa had always been meticulous with their finances, but the process itself was excruciating and did nothing to aid Mahmoud's failing health. Then, Mahmoud's gung-ho lawyer abruptly switched from wanting to roast Umbrella on a litigational spit to urging Mahmoud to settle. He never explained the reasons for his change of heart, but they all had their suspicions, especially after all was said and done, and he took a very long vacation to Europe. Finally, Mahmoud died from post-operative complications. The Umbrella Corporation had, for all intents and purposes, murdered Lisa Broward's friend, and gotten away with it by writing a check to his widow. Fadwa was bound by a gag order that was part and parcel of the terms of the settlement. Strictly speaking, Lisa wasn't bound by it, but all the details she knew were hearsay, and any attempt to reveal the truth would only give Umbrella the excuse they needed to ruin what was left of Fadwa's life. So when Matt came to her with an opportunity to pay the bastards back, she took it. It didn't matter if it meant a commitment of time that might number in years. It didn't matter if she risked her life. It didn't matter that she risked provoking the ire of a corporation for whom forcing an IRS audit was the mildest of weapons in the arsenal they could call to bear on the average citizen. With the divorce final, and Nick off contemplating his navel or whatever it was he decided to do with his life now that his mother was dead, Lisa had no family to concern herself with. They had never had kids, for which she was now eternally grateful, as the divorce had been ugly enough without that factored in. She was free and clear to exact her revenge on the monsters who murdered her friend. Any time she had any doubts, she thought about Fadwa. After that, it was easy. Let them move her into an underground complex 1,000 feet beneath Raccoon City. Let them only allow her occasional trips to the surface. Let them force her to spend 90% of her life in a hole providing maintenance and upgrades on their computer security systems, allowing them to keep their precious secrets from an inquisitive world. Let them give her access, because with that access would come her revenge. "All right, then," Acker said, clapping his pudgy hands together. It sounded like someone playing a percussion riff on a ham. "I guess that just leaves us to fill out all the paperwork. I gotta tell you, though, there's a lot of it. NDAs, employee contracts, the whole 9 yards, you know?" Once again plastering a smile onto her face, Lisa said, "Bring it on, Mr. Acker. I'm ready to join the Umbrella family." Acker returned the smile. "Glad to hear you say that, Miss Broward. Trust me, you won't regret this decision." She didn't, but not for the reasons Casey Acker thought.